contracts that you had in the past. If you've had a contract over $1 million, give yourself 15 points. So basically, everything that they cared about, they put in the scoring sheet. And you as a contractor identified where your points were for each thing. And then you turned in your proposal. So what the government did then, and you had to provide proof for anything you were claiming. So if you said you had a CPARS rating of 5, you had to show them a copy of it. So what they did then was they went through all the proposals, and they just stacked them. Who had the highest number of points, who had the lowest number of points for the large businesses, who had the highest number and lowest number for small businesses. And then they started at the top, and they went through each proposal to verify that if you said you had a CPARS rating of 5, you actually showed them the documentation. So if you had documentation for every single thing you claimed, then they allowed you to keep the same number of points that you claimed. If you didn't provide documentation, they deducted those points. And then they re-ranked them and put the highest ones on top, and they picked the top 40 large businesses and the top 40 small businesses. So why do you think I would be telling you to start thinking about your CPSR process now, based on that scenario?
You won't be able to get that 5 if you can.
If you're a small business, and all the other small businesses don't have a CPSR system, and you do, guess what? You get those points and your competitors didn't get them. Do you have a cost estimating system and your competitors don't? And again, that's something that a large business is required to have. You can claim points for that, and your competitors can't. So as a small business, particularly getting into federal business, just be thinking about becoming a large business and having those processes in place to help you get there. Because it'll position you well now, and when they have these types of procurements that are based on the scoring sheet, you're going to position much better than your competitors in the small business field. And quite frankly, there is a huge deficit of contracting officers, particularly in the Washington, D.C. area, which you would think if there would be enough contracting officers, we'd have enough there. There's like a minus 5,000 contracting officers. So the contracting officers they have are really work to the bone when it comes to these procurements. So what happens is when you have these, this type of new method of scoring, that is a lot easier than going through every single requirement line for line. Basically all they're doing in this case is they're determining whether or not what you claim you actually have, and then they're making award decisions. So that's to me, that's a much quicker way of getting things done. And so I think more and more agencies are going to go to that kind of methodology. So that's why I'm suggesting that you position yourself for that. Okay.
So it gives, basically, it gives you credibility, and anything you can do to make the officer's job easier, then you're going to move more closer to the top of the list.
Yeah, because one of the things contracting officers complain about all the time is contractors don't listen to them, and they don't give them the forms they need and the documents they need. So even if you just get the RFP completed correctly and you submit all the information, you're going to make the contracting officer's job a lot easier, and you address every requirement. When it comes to this kind of stuff, the score sheets speak for themselves. So they will see that you have a cost estimating system or a CPSR system or these kind of things in place, and where it's going to be reflected. You don't even have to worry about a contracting officer thinking kindly of you. You're just going to have more points than your competitors. So the award decision is a no-brainer, which is exactly where you want it to be. Okay. So if you actually conduct a solicitation, you put the component alphabet. So basically the government says, we understand that as a basic function of doing business, particularly as you get larger, and even with small businesses, do you guys have strategic partners at this point? Where companies you always go to for the same stuff?
Suppliers?
Yeah. And like where you would negotiate a quantity type discount because you do so much business with them? Yeah. So the government understands that, and they're not saying for you to put those kind of components out to bid, because they know you have those strategic relationships in place. And more than likely, you're going to get better prices from them than even if you did go out for a solicitation, right? Because you have that, you're not looking at it from one procurement perspective, you're looking at it across your company. So you've got a much, you have more that you're buying, so you're going to get a quantity discount. So I'm getting over a cold, and you know how you've got post-nasal drip stuff on them. So you know so they understand that those strategic sourcing kind of opportunities, you don't have to put those out for bid. But what they do want you to put out for bid is the rest of the stuff to make sure your bid is fair and open to other companies, you know, for the small stuff that you're buying. So when you do that, you work with your subcontracts person to ensure that the appropriate terms and conditions are in the subcontract. So, you know, everything that's in your compliance matrix, if you were going to provide the product, you would want to take those same terms and conditions and pass them down to your subcontractor. Because if you're the prime and they're the sub, you want your sub to step up to the same terms and conditions that you have to step up to. So that's one thing you would do. Then you work with the pricing people to make sure that you're getting prices for the correct components. So what's going to happen as a small business supplier trying to work with you, and I've evaluated lots of contractors' proposals, subcontractors' proposals, is that you tell them you want items A, B, and C, that that's what you need for your solution. And what do they give you prices on? A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And why are they giving you prices through A to G? What are they trying to do?
If they can't fulfill A, they got others to go to.
Right, so what else are they trying to do?
Show your capabilities.
Right, so you're trying to give them this much of the pie, they're trying to get this much of the pie. And by showing you everything else they can do, that's what they're trying to do. Now, if I'm a pricing person and I don't know the technology, I could take that subcontractor's proposal and say, oh, they're giving me everything that we must have asked for, I'm going to put all those prices into my proposal. And what does that do to my proposal price? Inflates it, right? Because I'm putting in way too much stuff in there. So subcontractors will always try to give you more than what you've asked for. And so as a technical person, you have to say, no, wait a minute. I only asked for items A, B, and C. That's what I want prices for. And just pull those things out of the price proposal and put it into your own price proposal. Develop a statement of work. So you as the technical person have to pull those same requirements out of the RFP for that component and make sure that those are the requirements that are going out to suppliers to be able to bid on. And then you also have to put together a source selection plan. So when these proposals come in, how are you going to make an award decision? So one of the conflicts that comes up is that your company decides that these are your strategic sourcing partners, and let's bucket them over here. But you now need these other components, and you know, you say, oh, my buddy's in the widget business, I'm going to give the business to him. That's what the government's trying to prevent you from doing. So you have to show that once the proposals come in, how are you going to make an award decision? What criteria are you going to use to select the winner? And you need to figure that out ahead of time, because when the proposals come in, you get biased based on what you've read in the proposals. So you want to figure that out first so that you can make a clean determination as to who the winner should be. And then you evaluate each offer's proposal according to your source selection plan. And the most important thing is that you have to document your findings for this contractor purchasing system review. Now you have identified all your components of your solution that you're responsible for, and now you actually start working with your strategic partners or vendors and yourself to write the individual sections of the RFP, the proposal. So the writing, you can do it yourself. You can ask yourselves to get involved. You can ask your strategic partners to get involved in writing. And then you work with your own internal subject matter experts to make sure that all the proposal sections that are being done internally are written. So let's say, for example, I have to design a widget, and I need engineering, my engineering department to do that. Now, they're not the ones going after this bid, you know, I am, but I need resources from the engineering department in order to be successful. So I would go to the head of the engineering department and say, this is a service level agreement internally of what we have to provide so that they're stepping up, you know, to know what their actual requirements are to bid. Then you use a compliance matrix to make sure everything's addressed. And if there's any requirement that you're not able to complete, you have to let your technical director know because they need to make sure it goes in the cover letter. So they talk to the proposal manager and say, we flat out can't do this requirement, we're taking exception to it. And, you know, again, I would just caution you that if you take exception, you have now become an anomaly in the government evaluation. So if they have 10 proposals that do everything and they have yours that takes an exception, when they do that first competitive range determination, guess who's going? You, because in order to keep you in the bid, they have to equalize you to your competitors. And I think we talked about this last time, but let's say, for example, the requirement is that you provide a 3-year warranty. And you say, no, our products come, you know, we only offer a 1-year warranty. And the government, and that's what we're taking exception to, they're only going to offer 1 year. So the government then has to go find a maintenance provider for your product and find out how much they're going to charge them for 2 years of maintenance to be equivalent to 3 years of warranty. And that price that they find gets added onto your bid. So that's a lot of extra work for them, and they tend not to want to do that. So if they have at least 3 vendors that are competitive, they're just going to go with them and kick you out of the competitive range. All right. You also need to work with your marketing and sales team to identify those themes or discriminators about your solution. So remember, your marketing person may have been the one that established this relationship with the customer over the long term. Your salesperson is the one that would tend to have focused in on this opportunity. And what you want to do here is you want to make evaluation as easy as possible. So you know these little pop boxes? So you're reading, and all of a sudden there's a box that might be grayed in, and it says, these are the reasons why we should pick you, right? And you actually put that in your proposal so that it jumps out. And the reason why you do that is because as the government is going through and scoring you, and they say, oh, I think their solution was excellent, I'm going to give them a 5, they have to justify why they're giving you a 5. If they give you a 1, they have to justify why they're giving you a 1. So and they don't have to justify if they're giving you like a 2, 3, or 4, because those are mid-range answers. But in order to secure that 5, the score of 5, which is what you want, you want to make sure you give them reasons to select you. So if you put those little reasons to select you in that pop box, I'm sure there's a better name for that, but that's what I call them, they can just write those down as the reasons for why they're giving you a 5. So basically you're doing their homework wrong. Then you want to include any graphics. You know, if you want to show a picture of your widget, if you want to show your production line, your manufacturing line, to show that it's real and, you know, it's not just something you're talking about, you could do that, put any kind of graphics and put that in there. You want to make sure that you're following the format provided by the proposal manager, including style, template, and naming conventions. So if you're like me, I get an assignment, I want to get started on it right away. I'm taking this class for the Black Belt certification next week. I already have my book bag packed, I have a brand new notebook, I like this whole school mentality, I'm just so psyched about it. But like I'm ready, you know, that's really important to me. When it comes to proposals, however, if I just sit down and start typing stuff in, I'm not going to be following the proposal manager's template. And why that becomes a problem is right now, we're sort of in a relaxed state trying to get this proposal done. But the day before the proposal is done, when the proposal manager gets all kinds of things in all this haphazard formatting, they have a nightmare on their hands trying to get it all in the correct formatting. And you don't want to make it sound like you want to make sure that your proposal is the best reflection of your company. But if it looks like you've written a part, we've written a part, we've written a part, and you're all using different terminology, even for something simple as, what are we calling the team? Are we calling it the Blue Wolf team? Are we calling it the Excellence team? What are we calling our team, like of all our subcontractors plus ourselves? Even something as simple as that, you don't want to have to go through and correct that at the end, because the government will come back and ask you questions. Wait, who's this other company you're talking about here? You know, so you always want to make sure that whatever the conventions are that your organization is going to use, that you use those right from the start. And then you conduct a compliance check by making sure that you show the government what page in your proposal every requirement is addressed. And you're doing this to make sure that you get maximum points. You don't want them to have any inability to find your information. And I don't know if I mentioned the story, but I took a class in Shipley methodology, which is like one of the premier proposal development kind of companies. At least they were like 20 years ago. Anyway, they brought us all out to Utah, and they had us take this, be government evaluators. So we actually evaluated proposals just like the government was. And they were very smart in the way they did it. They waited until 5 o'clock when we were all getting ready to go home, and they said, okay, here's your other duty as assigned, which is what happens a lot of times with government agencies, right? And here's your RFP document, here's your source selection plan, and here are 3 proposals. And we had to evaluate those. And, you know, of course, everybody's cranky about being there after 5 o'clock, and, you know, it's sprung on us, which is just typically what happens in the government. So we started evaluating them, and, you know, the first one tracked pretty well, and you could, you know, okay, we can get through this. This isn't going to be a big deal. You can get this finished in, you know, an hour max. Then we get to the second one, and it's like harder to find things. You're not really sure what you're looking at. There's this whole disconnect. The third one was a complete and total disaster. And I know I personally want to just throw the thing in the trash can and just forget about it, which I'm sure government evaluators do, because let's face it, they're human. They want to get home to their kids' soccer games and things like that. You know, so if you don't make it easy for them, that's exactly what's going to happen to you. So in this case, we all did the exercise, everybody graded it, and all this kind of thing. And come to find out, the best offer, both technically and price-wise, which one, do you think?
Sloppy one.
Nobody in the class identified that as the winner. Yet that was the technically superior, that was the most cost-effective solution for the government. So unless you, so I think that gives you proof in the pudding as to why you need to follow their instructions. So you do that compliance checklist that they gave you at the beginning, you put in all the page numbers so they can track where you're addressing issues. And then you prepare all your sections for some sort of blue team review. Blue team review is a review of just all the technical stuff. And what you're doing here in the technical review is to make sure every section is completely accurate and pretty much near final form. Once the blue team reviews it, comments come back to the individual proposal member. Well, typically what happens is all the comments go to like the technical director first and the proposal manager. And they do a sanity check. And at this point, it's usually several days before submission. And if it's a really large 300-page proposal, you have to know where to spend your valuable resources to get this done. So you make some decisions on, yeah, this is a great idea, there's no way in heck we can implement this, so we're just going to ignore that. And basically you give the technical person the specific comments that they need to be incorporating into their document. So the ones that you've decided, yes, you have time to implement, yes, you have to implement, and you give that direction to the technical team member. Then they prepare their final submission, and then the proposal gets submitted, and you wait for those clarification and deficiency reports, and then you respond to those, and you work with the subcontract and pricing team to make sure your vendor subcontracts are in place to represent all the components that you're bidding out. Any questions about what the technical team member is going to do? Okay, after submission activities, they also put together a list of items for negotiation. If there's a live test demonstration, they do the live test demonstration. They participate in any kind of oral presentations if that's required. Usually when it comes to time for discussions, which are negotiations, the government limits the number of people you can have in the room. But sometimes technical people come in and out for specific questions. And then you wait your award decision and you prepare for contract startup. So that's like sort of the technical team person in a nutshell. So keep this in mind, and then let's take a 10-minute break and we'll pick up with, I think we're gonna go to commercial items because I have, well,